So, I gotta say this. Jeff, you made a sizable donation to Whale Scout for the privilege of hosting this show.
Sure.
And we, in response, punished you.
Not on purpose.
By making you watch the first hour of Starrcade 84.
Yeah, good God.
In hindsight, do you wish you just kept your money?
Oh, Vinny, come on.
No, not at all.
I would be so angry if I made a donation to some charitable cause and as a result had to watch this first hour.
And Raw.
Dude, this is much worse than Raw. This is much worse than Raw.
We'll get into it, but I mean, the incompetence of the overall production for some of these finishes is staggering. And this is not it was 30 whatever years ago. This is just like, how did this happen? How is this possible?
You would watch this and think this was the first time sports had been shown on TV.
This was Starrcade 84. We watched Starrcade 83. 84 had way more production problems.
Well, I guess we'll start at the beginning then.
You know, I'm going to do it like Granny.
I don't.
You don't want to start midway through Raw and then come back to this match?
Even if I wanted to, I couldn't.
Okay.
So I'll do it the only way I can. In chronological order.
Well, let me start with this Mike Davis, Denny Brown NWA World Junior title match, because I got to make a comment before you get started on the review. I mentioned this on the Filthy Show. Denny Brown, remember we saw Denny Brown and we said, this guy looks like a fat, old Marty Jannetty.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this weekend, I watched Joey Janela's Spring Break, a couple of the matches, including Joey Janela versus Marty Jannetty.
I see.
Marty Jannetty is now fat and old.
So he's turned into Denny Brown.
He fucking looks just like Denny Brown now. I was right. It's crazy how much he looks like Denny Brown. He's way better than Denny Brown.
In 2017?
Now, today, he is.
Yes. So they announced the challenger Mike Davis and the champion Denny Brown. Then they announced the referee is Earl Hebner.
Everyone boos.
Everyone boos. They all have a premonition that this man will be a horrible referee on big events in November. So it's Denny Brown and Mike Davis, and they wrestle, and they're doing some stuff, and then they fucked up a move like I have never seen a move fucked up before.
It was so bad.
Remember like a minute ago when I asked if Marty Jannetty was a better wrestler in 2017? That was a stupid fucking question.
It was a very bad question.
On this night. So Mike Davis does a drop down. Like you push the guy into the ropes, you drop down on your belly, and the guy runs over you, and you pop back up and do whatever. Denny Brown jumps over him, comes to a full halt, and then launches himself somersault style through the ropes to the floor.
Yeah.
And then starts selling his back.
Yep. You know what's ironic? In that Joey Janela versus Marty Jannetty match, Earl Hebner made an appearance.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't escape him.
So the only thing Gordon could say about this move was Brown's got his problems. I'll say.
That's for sure.
It was an Enzo-esque bump to the floor. I had flashes of Enzo and Cesaro.
And this was a very Enzo-rific spot that he fucked up.
It really was. So they're doing some stuff, and it sucks. And Davis goes for a back suplex with a bridge. The ref counts 3, even though Brown clearly got a shoulder up. And that's when all hell broke loose.
Oh, my God.
Oy.
They announce that Mike Davis is the winner and still champion. The announcers are talking about what a dominant win this was for Mike Davis. And then the referee waves his hands back and forth, takes the belt, presents it to Brown. Brown starts to celebrate as the new champion. The announcers, I don't know if they turned their back to the ring. I don't know if they're just in an alternate reality. But for like 2 more minutes, they were talking about this like Davis had won.
They had no idea what was going on.
They said the ring announcer had screwed up by announcing Brown as the winner when they made the second announcement.
Yeah, the referee has put the belt on the shoulder of Denny Brown.
Yeah.
And Bob Caudle is still talking about how Mike Davis is the champion.
Yes. And then they were very confused. Eventually, they seemed to get a clue as to what had happened. They said, well, let's go to the replay. And they go to the replay, and Davis is the suplex, and the announcers say, okay, here on the count of 1, you can clearly see Denny Brown's shoulders are down. And then the replay just stopped.
Yeah.
We never saw the shoulder come up.
Can I ask a serious question here? Was it illegal in the 80s to show the third count? Every replay on this show, they showed the 1 count, the 2 count, and then it paused. Why? I can understand if you're showing a replay the next day on TV and it's like, you got to pay to see that third count. I was paying to see this fucking show. I just saw the 3 count. Can you show me the whole thing so I can find out what happened in this Denny Brown-Mike Davis match, for crying out loud? This was appalling. What would they have done at Full Sail, Jeff?
I don't know. They sounds like from the NXT reports they reshoot a lot of stuff at Full Sail, but I mean this was, yeah. I mean you guys, I don't even have words. Like my notes just say WTF with 3 question marks. Like he hit the belly to back suplex, as it was called.
The suplex.
Yeah, and I was kind of peripherally watching, so I didn't notice the shoulder up. I saw the 3, and okay, obviously he won. And then, I mean, you guys talk about sometimes even on WWE shows of there are things that are only clear to the audience at home with commentary, and how the live audience would have no idea what was going on. Nobody, whether they're watching at home or on commentary or whatever, had any clue what was going on. And this was just a spectacular failure all around. It was incredible.
Everyone involved in this did their job badly.
And I knew going in that Denny Brown won, and then Denny Brown got back suplexed and pinned with his shoulder up. I was so confused. I didn't see the other guy's shoulders down. It was, and later I figured out what was going on, but this was like the biggest mess of a production for a match I've seen in years.
You'd have to work very hard to find a pay-per-view opener worse than this.
And the match was terrible. That's a good point.
The match was also terrible.
It wasn't just the screw-ups here. That was a terrible match.
They go backstage where there's a young Tony Schiavone, who may actually be younger here than he was in 1983 somehow.
I swear to God they called him Tony Shitvani. I swear to God. I thought, you fucked up his name last year. You've had a full year to figure out what this guy's name is. You still can't say it right.
He was nervous. He was mumbling. He had nothing to say, and he totally lost his train of thought. The show was... they say the show has gone off the rails? At no point was this show within sight of the rails.
No, it was trying to get on the rails.
Fighting desperately to see the rails. Mr. Ito versus Brian Adidas.
Brian Adidas.
Yes.
And Vinny, it's the very popular young
Brian
Adidas.
I want to make sure.
Right.
In case any of you are tempted here in the 1980s Carolina to cheer for the middle-aged fat Japanese guy, this guy over here is popular and young.
It always drove me crazy when WWE would call somebody like, they used to call Jeff the charismatic enigma.
Yeah.
It was always like, do you have to call the guy charismatic?
Yes.
It was always so weird to me. But this has been done forever in wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
The young, good-looking, popular Brian Adidas.
Yeah.
This is actually Brian Adidas.
You're not familiar with him, yes.
But they fucked it up and they called him Brian Adidas. Mm-hmm. And it was on closed circuit.
And all the graphics, too.
And everybody watched it. So for years, he was Brian Adidas in the magazines,
Excellent.
while he was wrestling as Brian Adidas, or Adidas mostly in World Class.
Yes, for those who don't know, he worked in Texas with the Von Erichs for a long time. I had no idea who Mr. Ito was, so I looked him up, and he's actually got quite a resume.
Yeah, it's very famous. Toriano, Evil, based parts of their personas on Mr. Ito.
Manosuke Ueda. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but that's his name. He was a big star in Japan in the 60s and 70s. Used to team with Tiger Jeet Singh. This was not a terrible match. There was just nothing to it.
Dude, I thought this match was, as far as like a wrestling match, it was not too bad. And it had a pretty awesome airplane spin finish.
Adidas, the clean-cut, popular young star, used arm drags and arm bars. Ito, the Japanese man, used, and this is a quote, sneaky chops.
Yeah, sneaky chops.
Sneaky chops.
You don't see them chops coming.
I guess not. And Adidas hit an airplane spin and made a cover for the win.
I liked it.
Mike Graham versus Jesse Barr for the Florida Championship.
Was it me, or was this the longest match in the history of the Earth?
It was what I described it as. They went out there and did a 60-minute Iron Man match, and they took the first 5 minutes of that match and just put it on a loop.
11 minutes and 34 seconds.
That's how long this went?
Yeah.
That means they were in headlocks for 10 minutes and 34 seconds.
It was like a good match, but then it just kept going. And it didn't even go that long, but it felt like it just went on forever.
They did headlocks. They did hair pulls, sometimes by Jesse Barr. And he would deny the hair pull, and of course he did. And then he would claim that Mike Graham pulled his trunks, which of course he hadn't. And they just kept going and going and going. This is all they did. I mean, that's all they did. Ref gets bumped. He missed a small package by Graham. Recovered immediately, made a few 2 counts. And then Barr made a cover with his feet on the ropes. The ref didn't see that. Counted Graham's shoulders down for the win. Now, I will admit, we're watching this here in 2017. And it's our job as critics to say whether you, the viewer, should go home and watch this. And I can't recommend you do that with this match. That said, it worked in the building. This crowd went nuts at the end of this match. They were really, really into all the near falls, and they were furious when Jesse Barr cheated to win. But don't go watch it.
What do you think about this, Jeff?
I thought the commentary did a commendable job of trying to, he was talking about the effects of the headlock, and you're losing consciousness and the way it can slow you down. But I thought, not knowing these guys, I thought the story they were telling was, Graham's teasing the figure 4 and Barr is scrambling out as fast as he can. He does that twice. And I thought the payoff was that means as soon as he gets the figure 4 in the center of the ring, it's done. Like it's a lethal weapon. So it builds to Graham finally puts the figure 4 on in the middle of the ring, and Barr just wiggles over all the way across the ring and rope breaks it. And it's like, oh, never mind. I guess that's not the story they were going for.
Now, I will praise one thing in this match, and that is that right before the finish, Jesse Barr took a great bump for an atomic drop. Now, I know, Jeffrey, you've never wrestled before. Vinny has.
Sort of.
Actually, afterwards, I have a slight anecdote to share about that. But.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I want to say that when you're a wrestler, one of the things, I never really thought about this till recently, but how do you sell an atomic drop? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like someone lifted you up and they kneeled down and they dropped your ass on their knee. How do you sell that? Do you stand up on your tiptoes and grab your ass? Do you take a back bump like Randy Savage used to do?
Yes.
Do you do what Jesse Barr does and bounce high into the air and run into a turnbuckle? It's a very weird move because there's no right way to have someone drop you ass first on their knee and sell it.
I remember once seeing the Honky Tonk Man place both hands behind his back and do a chicken walk all the way across the ring.
That's another one. That's another popular one. I like it because it's like the Stunner where everybody has their own special bump that they take for it. And Jesse Barr took a good one when he dove face first into the top turnbuckle after getting a knee in the ass. Jeff, your anecdote.
Touch on the replay again. They show Barr, they say we're going to look at it in slow motion, and we see Barr with his feet on the ropes, and they're trying to describe it like we're looking for something really subtle that we may not have seen before in the replay, like somebody using brass knucks, but it's pretty clear we didn't really need slow motion to see the finish and see what was going on.
It's feet on ropes.
We got it on the first count, on the first view.
We got clips of an angle where a bunch of heels were attacking Dick Slater and Ricky Steamboat with assorted weaponry. Zambui Express versus Assassin Number 1 and Buzz Tyler in an elimination match.
What a battle.
Where to begin here?
The Zambui Express is where we're going to be.
Zambui Express were Kareem Muhammad and Elijah Akeem.
They were awesome.
They were a couple of huge black guys in military gear. I had heard the name Zambui Express before. What I did not know until looking them up tonight was that they were also occasionally billed as, and don't blame me, I'm just reporting facts, they were billed as the Muslim Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both dead within 10 years.
Well, that also happened. So, Muhammad, I believe, trained New Jack.
Yes.
So there's that.
That is a claim to fame.
Yeah. They legitimately wrestled as a team all over the world and won championships all over the world. It's true. Buzz Tyler, I had never heard of until tonight. He was a guy who worked in St. Louis and the Carolinas throughout the 1980s. And the Assassin, I assume everyone listening to this knows who the Assassin is. If not, you should look him up. That's a long story, but a good one. So this match was billed as an elimination match. And it was just a brawl start to finish, and a pretty good brawl. The wrestling in this match is awfully good.
I like the Zambui Express. I need to see more of them.
I like Buzz Tyler.
Yeah?
He's a good little brawling babyface. So they're doing this, and it's just a fight back and forth nonstop, and it only went like 4 minutes. An Assassin bounced into Muhammad, and Muhammad takes a bump in the middle of the ring. Assassin is selling the collision by leaning back against the ropes. But then Tyler, his partner from the floor, reaches through, pushes him forward. He stumbles on Muhammad, and the ref counts 3. Everyone cheers.
Muhammad has been eliminated.
It's one fall. This guy's eliminated. Now they get to work on the other Zambui Express 2-on-1. And then we are told that
the match is over.
Elijah Akeem was counted out at some point.
Yeah. It was so weird.
Now-
So they went to the floor, and the ref looked like he was counting, but then he just stopped, and they didn't ring the bell. They didn't make an announcement. They just went back to the stuff that was going on in the ring. Apparently, there was a count out there that they kept top secret.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with
This
the booking
show
production of the
was
show.
a fucking disaster.
Now, even, by the way, let's pretend that had been presented well and we all knew it was a count-out going in. Why bother doing the elimination match stip?
I don't have any
There was
idea.
0 minutes of 2-on-1 action here.
I don't have any idea. Maybe they got their time cut. Maybe Mike Graham and Jesse Barr just went too
Well,
long.
that would make sense,
It
actually.
would actually.
Could they not have recovered by saying, they're just retreating, like they're just being heels and they're going to take the count out at the end when he tells the second guy to get out of the ring?
Yeah, it wasn't even that. You just, we're done now.
Well,
Yeah,
the problem...
it looks like there has been a count out and we're going to the back to Dusty.
Yeah, God bless Gordon Soley. Like, he's better than Percy Watson, but the last 2 Starrcades we've watched, I have not been blown away by either of them, actually. Bob Caudle either. They're both just dudes that are there. Yeah, this was a mess.
My last comment here is just the name Zambui Express.
Yeah.
If you Google the name Zambui, the only thing you will find is content related to the Zambui Express. It's like a crucifix.
I was just gonna say,
They made it up.
it's like a crucifix. They're from the great country of
Great
Zambui.
African nation of Zambui.
It was a Zamboni Express, and they just fucked it up.
That's the funniest thing you ever said. And I want that team now, by the way.
Yeah.
They ride
awesome.
Zambonis down to the ring. Play some Stompin' Tom Connors. So they interview Dusty Rhodes backstage. Dusty... That's the best way to put this. Dusty was never a guy who... He was not a pretty man. Didn't try to be a pretty man. Tried to be a unique man, but not a pretty man. But they go to him back there. And he's like in a plastic chair leaning against the wall. He's got this silver, those 1980s like satin jackets on. He's dyed his hair to apparently match the jacket silver. Ball cap on. He's slouching and slumping. He's challenging for the World Heavyweight title and $1 million on this show. He looks like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world.
Well, maybe we'll find out why later.
I guess so. So he cut a Dusty promo. We're going to find out who's the biggest star and who makes the most money in the championship. Raging Bull versus Black Bart for the Brass Knuckles Championship.
Now, Jeff started watching wrestling in 1994. When you were in the 3rd grade, is that right?
Second or third, I can't remember.
Jesus Christ, we're old.
I was graduating high school in
Oh
1994.
my God, I graduated in 93. I graduated. He was in the 2nd grade at the time. Yeah. But anyway, I started watching wrestling in around 87, and it was WWF. So when I was growing up, Black Bart was just a total jobber. So every time I watch these old Crockett shows, or I watch a Starrcade, and like Black Bart is a guy in a championship match, I'm like, what the fuck is this? That's what I'm stuck with from growing up seeing Black Bart as a jobber. Here he was against Manny Fernandez. It's for the Brass Knuckles Championship.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Because I watched wrestling just a little bit before you, but also 1987. And I was a big fan of Pro Wrestling Illustrated and the other Bill Apter magazines. And in the match results sections or the championship histories or whatever, I would always see Brass Knuckles title. I think, Jesus Christ, these men put on brass effing knuckles, as I would have said in 1987, and beat each other? That sounds horribly, horribly violent. I've never understood how this could work until I watched, honestly, this match. This is the first Brass Knuckles match I've ever seen. You know how they do this? There are no brass knuckles. They're just taped fists. But I guess
Figurative brass knuckles.
it is.
Championship.
It's a metaphorical brass knuckles.
Can you imagine what bullshit? I thought there were brass knuckles involved.
I was expecting this. I thought they...
Man,
Yeah.
my childhood's
So-
been ruined.
So Raging Bull throws a sombrero into the crowd. Solely claims this hat cost $200 in 1984.
Yeah, for a sombrero.
$2,000 now, I believe. So they did have tape fists, which meant they could punch harder and not have to worry about hurting their own hands. So They did more with the punching. It was not just another match, and not just another brawl even. They did do more to block and dodge the fists and punches than you would in a normal match, and when the punches connected, they sold them a lot more. It was almost entirely a brawl nonstop. Just punches and occasionally elbows or a slam here and there. And Bull ends up bleeding from all these punches to the forehead. So Bart's working over the cut for a while.
Yeah, many bled. Can you believe it?
I know. And made a comeback, but Bart cut him off with a low blow, which is legal. It's a no DQ match. And he goes to get the Bull rope from James J. Dillon. But as he goes, leans over the ropes to grab it, Bull pops up, hits a O'Connor roll for the win. He wins the match. He is the new Brass Knuckles champion, for which there is no title belt, no medal, no trophy, no plaque.
It's just pride.
Just, you're the champion now.
I do love the idea that it's a Brass Knuckles championship that this man won with a reverse rolling cradle.
Yes, also true. And then he gets up, he's happy, he's high-fiving fans, bleeding all over the place, just watch the back.
Oh my God, he's just bleeding everywhere on these fans.
So,
Ay.
the match was, like I say, nothing but a blood and guts brawl, but it was actually pretty good for what it was.
It was a pretty good match.
If you ignore... Oh, sorry, that was the other match with the shit finished. I was fine with this.
Black Bart would totally be a mid-card NXT act today.
Yeah.
Yep. You're totally fine in that role.
I was a little surprised at the, Bieber-esque shrieks that Raging Bull got when he took off his chaps. I wouldn't think he would be, the same appeal as the young and popular Brian Adidas.
Well,
slim pickings for sex objects in the Carolinas, apparently.
yeah.
My favorite part of the commentary was when they're selling that anything goes, even karate.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Anything goes.
It's so much funnier when Jeff says it.
It actually is much funnier. Anything goes, even karate. Wait, those chops are sneaky. Mr. Ito would always use his karate, a karate thrust to the neck. That fucking is deadly. This was the 80s, dude. That was some deadly stuff right there. Well, Jeff, after watching the first hour of Starrcade, do you anticipate going and watching the second and third hours?
I do not. I left off on Steamboat's interview where he was. The two things I took away from that were he said he's been to the chiropractor every day for the last 2 days, which was strange phrasing. And then he says he's talking about how injured he is, and he says he doesn't want Tully Blanchard to hear. And then he immediately turns to the camera and addresses Tully Blanchard directly.
He's talking about the Long Riders and this feud, and I'm pretty sure he said the feud began when they came to his gym and made a mess of things.
Yeah.
Like spilling chalk everywhere.
I guess.
Not putting weights back.
Yeah.
Doing curls in the squat rack.
Yep.
And if they did,
seat up.
that should have been an angle.
Should have been. Yeah, this was the most generic white meat babyface interview I ever saw.
Yeah.
It's pretty horrible. God bless Ricky Steamboat.
Starrcade 84. Not shaping up as the best pay-per-view I ever saw.
No, it really is not.
I watched 1 hour, 2 weeks ago, or hour number 2 here. There's still, the intermission was still going on, so we had the announcers discussing the card and upcoming matches. Tully Blanchard's going to wrestle Ricky Steamboat, which I bet's really good. But they noted Tully's arsenal included slaps to the face and, quote, an open harangue of language.
Yeah. There were moments on this show where I really, really liked Gordon Soley. And then there were moments on this show where I really was not into Gordon Soley. It all depended on what he was saying and when. Like, Gordon Soley really was still at this point great at explaining, like, why a hold hurt and what was happening to a man in a hold. But there was stuff that, like, say what you want about the announcers nowadays, and I will, but at least, like, the announcers point out what the fuck's going on and whether it's important or not. Gordon Soley, there was stuff on this show where he missed what happened, and then he didn't care.
Yeah.
He was so bored.
Yes.
And I was like, that loser leaves town match was kind of a big fucking deal. And he sold it like it was just 2 prelim geeks, and we were done with it. We got to move on to the next match. Well worse than anything you see in TNA as far as to the back.
He was really, really good at calling good matches, and at least on this show, not so good at calling crap. And unfortunately, this was a crap-intensive show. Let's see. Well, the first match we watched was Paul Jones and Jimmy Valiant in a loser leaves town tuxedo street fight. So they come in there in their tuxedos. Jones also has a cape, a full cape around his tuxedo. He is accompanied by one of the Zambui Express. Valiant is seconded by the Assassin.
Jimmy Valiant, seconded by the Assassin.
Yeah. That's what he
Wrestling
said.
is so fucking weird. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not to mention, let's talk about what this match was.
Okay.
It was number one Paul Jones against the Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, both in suit jackets, both attempting to tear each other's clothes off, strip the other naked.
Yeah.
And the fans loved it.
Fans, when they came out and Jones kind of had that moment of truth where he realized, oh no, I have to fight this guy, and he got scared, and Boogie Woogie Man was just boogieing and woogieing all over the place. The building's just electric for nothing.
All I heard about was how terrible this match was, how fucking awful it was. And I thought, anybody who thought this match was terrible, number one, clearly you have a memory from 1984 and it's now 2017. Or if you've watched it recently, there's no way you watch anything current.
Yeah.
Like, this is not even in the universe of one of the worst matches ever. Paul Jones was a great heel, begging off, selling. Boogie Woogie was just the best at eliciting a crowd reaction with absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
The match wasn't long. It wasn't like a 35-minute horrible fucking match. They got in there, they did the shit, they did their finish, and they went home.
Yeah. I don't know what there is to complain about this match. It was
Because the bad guy won and sent
exactly
the
what should
good
have
guy
been
away.
expected. So the bell rings. There's a few seconds of pausing and Boogie Woogie intimidating him. And then Boogie charges. And as you have noted, there has never been a good guy who cheats more than Jimmy Valiant. Now, to be fair, this wasn't anything goes match. And it came to bite him in the end. But the first thing he did was to take out a rope, tie it around Paul Jones's neck, and then tie that to the top rope. He tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Via strangulation.
He tried to hang him to death.
Yes.
Is what he tried to do here.
Then, with Jones unable to defend himself, Valiant removed his own jacket first, so he could throw more punches. Threw a few punches, took off Jones's jacket, tore off his shirt, yanked down his trousers.
He literally stripped number one Paul Jones down to like his underwear, which was actually wrestling trunks.
Yeah.
But the more he took off, the louder they cheered.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was a bad guy and everything, but
Yeah,
you're taking Paul Jones' clothes off.
It was not in their best interest to see this man naked, but it was in their best interest to see him humiliated.
Sure. And it's like wrestling. If you're out there in your trunks and your boots, it's not creepy.
Yeah.
But if your clothes are ripped off and you're in your gear, then it's creepy.
So he finally freed himself. He's in trunks, black socks, and like patent leather loafers. And yes, it was creepy. Even though if it had just been wrestling boots, it would have been probably fine. He does like 3 punches, and then Valiant comes back and puts him in a sleeper. And Valiant still got his white shirt on. And apparently somewhere, I missed this, but apparently Jones had been bleeding a little bit while tied to the ropes by the neck. But he was not bleeding sufficiently. So Valiant puts him in the sleeper. Jones gigs right on camera. Just drags a razor blade back and forth over his forehead repeatedly. And then bleeds profusely onto Valiant's white shirt. Just make sure there's blood everywhere.
I should have known when Valiant came out in that white shirt.
Yeah. Just trouble. So there were shenanigans with the Assassin and the Zambui Express and J.J. Dillon, who was all over this show. He comes out, he bonks Valiant with some sort of object, he puts Jones on top, and apparently you can win via stripping your opponent naked or pinning him. And Jones pinned Valiant and got the win.
They had the announcers with their back to the ring, and you could see the glass behind them.
You can see their reflection in the glass, yes.
I presume there was a monitor that they were looking into, but I'm not sure based on the reaction of the announcers to the finish of this match. They didn't see what happened. The camera cut away from the finish. We didn't see the pinfall. They go back to show a replay, and they're like, I believe he was hit with an object. Yep, he would say with an object, 1, 2, 3. Let's go to the back. I was like, okay, first off, this fucking feud is a big deal, and it goes on for another, 2 years after this.
Yes, this feud never ends.
I mean, can we sell it a little bit? Jimmy Valiant has to leave town. Literally, that's what they said. Let's think about this. The Starrcade in Greensboro, okay? They go around. They go around the horn, so to speak.
Around the loop.
Around the loop. They do shows all over the place. They literally said, the loser of this match must leave town. That's what they said.
Yeah.
I was like, well, can they work in Charlotte?
Columbia? I don't know.
I mean, where the fuck can they work?
Gainesville?
You said they got to leave town. Is that just this fucking building right here? He, of course, came back as Charlie Brown from out of town.
From out of town.
Because he's not allowed in town.
No.
Which is every town that the NWA promotes in. Apparently.
Yeah. Shivani interviewed Ric Flair. This is really weird because we watched shows from various eras and our timeline gets, at least in my head, it gets mixed up. So we of course watched the Horseman era Ric Flair every week on the retro shows, and the last pay-per-view we watched was 1983 Starrcade, where Flair was a straight babyface. But he's in the main event here against Dusty Rhodes, so I figured, okay, in the ensuing year he must have turned heel. Well, apparently not. Could a straight babyface promo about being a fighting champion? He said some people liked him and some didn't, but they all knew he was the best wrestler in the world, and he hoped Dusty Rhodes was half the man he claimed to be so they could have a great match tonight.
You know, Ric Flair's in there, and they're talking about the fact that there's $1 million on the line in the match tonight. Let me say that again. There's $1 million that's going to the winner.
Cash.
Yeah. Flair then, or maybe it was Shivani, somebody notes that, if you're the champion, a year as champion, there's probably another $1 million coming to you.
Sure.
So we're talking at least $2 million this guy's going to make this year as the champion. Mm-hmm. There was another spot later in the show where J.J. Dillon gets in the ring. He's a manager, and he fucking I think he waffled Dick Slater. I can't remember who he hit, but whoever it was, they just stood there. Like, they didn't sell a thing. Because back in the day, there was a hierarchy. If you were a wrestler, you were famous, and you were rich. If you were the champion, you were fucking wealthy. If you were a manager and you hit a wrestler, the wrestler doesn't even sell it. It's so crazy. I mean, this is the way that it should be, right?
Right.
You don't go to a basketball game and think, every one of these star players here, I mean, they're just a fucking geek. They make no money. They do this only because they love it. They're like basketball marks, and so they do it for free. And I'm
College
fucking
fans
coming
do that.
here, and no, they're in college.
I see.
Right? They maybe got a scholarship or something.
They got a scholarship.
They're going to college, which is not cheap, for free by playing this fucking game.
Okay.
Just drives me crazy watching wrestling nowadays. Like, it's just crazy. Who's rich in storyline?
The McMahons.
The McMahons.
End of list.
Yeah. Everybody else is just groveling at their feet and lucky to have a job.
I see your point, yes. Dick Slater versus Ron Bass. I've seen a lot of Dick Slater, but I've never seen Dick Slater as a babyface before. So this is weird.
Sure was weird.
He was fine. He had a brawl. It's funny, I think he still does them, but there's awards like Best Flyer and Best Brawler and Best Technical Wrestler in The Observer. I can only think that if you are a modern-day WWE fan, you must not understand these awards at all, because every match and every wrestler is the same style, just a different finishing hold. Back in the day, you had different guys who worked different matches, and Ron Bass and Dick Slater got in there, they had a brawl. There was like one headlock takeover and a suplex, and otherwise just punching and kicking and stomping. They just got in there and had a fight. So Slater makes a comeback, hits a belly-to-belly and makes a cover. I guess the ref had already been thrown out at this point. Ref's down, Slater makes a cover. Here was where Dillon stomped him in the back of the head, and Slater just popped up and kicked his ass.
God, the bumps. JJ took better bumps than anyone on the show so far.
Yes,
It
for
was
sure.
crazy.
For sure.
There was one spot where Dick Slater punched JJ, and then he punched
Bass.
Bass, And like JJ jumped 10 feet in the air and did a flat back bump, and Bass just sort of rolled down to the ground like a luchador.
Yeah.
I was like, how about that?
Yeah. So eventually the ref returned. He determined that Slater had thrown him out of the ring. This was a disqualification, so Slater lost. Solely said this was a good decision and the right thing to do. And afterwards, Slater beat up both heels by himself, and frankly, his post-match attack was better than the match itself. We had Keith Larson and Ole Anderson versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff.
They played the national anthem. And then Keith and Ole start coming to the ring. Mm-hmm. And we have been watching these old pay-per-views in 3 parts because they're all about 3 hours long. We watch an hour a week. So the main event of the show is Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes. And so when they play the national anthem and Keith Larson starts coming to the ring, I initially almost stopped the show because I thought, oh, Ric Flair's coming to the main event. He's coming down for the main event.
I see.
And then I realized that's Keith Larson.
Yes.
How many fucking Ric Flair ripoffs were there in wrestling in the 80s?
All of them.
Oh my God. It's like Shawn Michaels today.
It's funny. I was looking at him, a little bit of Ric Flair, a little bit of Triple H, actually, back when he had long hair. But yes. Bleach blonde.
A little Buddy Landell.
A little Buddy Landell, a little Buddy Rogers. So here's the story. Ivan and Nikita are, of course, Russian, and therefore, in 1984, pure evil. Don Kernodle, as you'll recall from some of the other shows we have watched, was a protege of Sergeant Slaughter. But he had been teaming with Ivan, but then Ivan had turned on him and laid him out. So out comes Ole. He is accompanied by Don Kernodle, who is in street clothes with a neck brace, his arm in a sling, and a crutch. Looked like Magnum TA actually coming to the ring at the Crockett Cup. And Ole's tag team partner was Kernodle's alleged brother, Keith Larson. Do we have all that?
I got it.
It's a lot going on. So you have this match. And
Ivan and Nikita are related.
Right.
In storyline.
Yes. They're nephew and uncle.
What a job Ivan had. The more I look back at the 80s, his job was to get big stiffs and try and teach him how to work in tag matches.
Pretty much, actually.
Yeah.
And
another reason to put him in the Hall of Fame.
He scored with Nikita.
He did not quite score with...
Vladimir Pietrov was a tougher challenge, a tougher load to bear.
He was a tougher challenge. But he got better.
He got better. He did get better. So, I don't think I'd ever even heard of Keith Larson before this match. But, obviously I knew everyone else. They had what I thought was a really good tag match.
Yeah. And Nikita was super green, so think about that.
Yes. They did get the shine on Ivan forever. I think 10 minutes went by in this match before the Russians made one tag.
Well, the story was, Ivan just kept getting his ass handed to him. Over and over and over and over and over again. Until he finally had the opportunity to tag the Monster.
Yes.
Then the baby faces were in trouble.
As soon as Nikita tagged in, it's, well, we're fucked. So, they worked over Ivan's arm forever, but they were crazy intense working over this arm. This felt real. Ole is doing... I've seen spinning toe holds before. Ole is the first guy I've ever seen do a spinning finger hold. We did the same thing, but to the guy's arm, because Ole's attack is laser focused. I'm going to attack your fucking arm until it falls off. Ivan sold and sold and sold. At some point, he got bleeped for selling too much. Keith Larson, by the way, as young proteges go, much better than Tim Horner. So finally, a desperate Ivan. It was almost like a hot tag, but in reverse. But Ivan's finally able to tag Nikita, and now the Russians are, victory is guaranteed because he's unstoppable. And they work over Ole back and forth. They tag in and out a while. Still working very hard. Still a very fast pace.
I wonder if fans back in the day had this figured out. Because I was watching this match and they were just beating on Ivan for so long. I literally went upstairs and came back down. They were still beating on the guy. And it's very clear to me that, well, clearly the heels are winning. Because they took most of this, or the babyfaces took the majority of this match. It's like a pattern. They did this for years.
Yeah. So Nikita goes for a bear hug. Ole does a counter I've never seen where he does like an overhook of Nikita's arms, lifts him just a little bit in the air, and then drops him down so Nikita's chin is driven into Oli's skull.
Yeah, it was an awesome jaw jacker.
A jaw jacker, yes.
Never seen it before. Double overhook jaw jacker.
Yes, and Nikita goes down, and Oli has just one chance to tag Keith Larson. Larson makes an awesome comeback and breaks down into a four-way. Nikita leaves the ring to wipe out Kernodle. What a dick, attacking the injured man. Oli leaves the ring to get Nikita. This distracts the ref. Ivan whacks Larson with a foreign object. The ref turns around, and he counts 3, I am told, because the cameras missed it. Did I mention the production on the show is terrible?
Another missed finish here on this show. It's crazy.
I'm going to forgive it because everything in the 20 minutes up to that was very fun. This was a very good tag match.
It was a very, very good tag match. And the Kernodle attack after the match was the best thing on the show.
Kernodle's comeback, where he's destroying his own crutches over the Russians' heads and backs, that was awesome. And the place went nuts. So even though the villains won the match, the heroes saved the day.
A fine battle.
Best thing on the show by miles.
Yep, so next week we got Tully and
Steamboat.
Ricky.
Yeah.
We got Wahoo versus Superstar Billy
yes.
Graham.
Oh, yes.
And we have got Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair in the $1 million challenge.
Now, we'll have to watch that next week because in addition to being a fine pro wrestler and, of course, a power lifter, they claimed Billy Graham was also a champion in karate and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, this was when he was doing the karate gimmick.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
And don't forget Smokin' Joe Frazier is a referee.
Oh, I don't think they mentioned that one time.
You know, you'd think that a kangaroo as a referee would be a big story, but
that's true.
Apparently not.
All right, let's finish up Starrcade 84. And when I say finish up, I mean talk about it and then never talk about it or watch it again.
What are you talking about? This was great.
So,
finally, because the first 2 segments we reviewed, not great.
No. Ricky Steamboat versus Tully Blanchard.
How in the world could you not like this match?
I liked it. This was the best match in the show.
This match was better than Tyler Bate and Jack Gallagher.
Steamboat comes out and they have a generic version of Eye of the Tiger. That's fine. And then Tully Blanchard's coming out and there's like this generic kind of Van Halen knockoff, I guess is the best way I can describe it. It did not fit Tully Blanchard. So this match was, in fact, awesome. Ricky's in there with bad ribs. And so Tully is very, very cautious. He knows Steamboat is still a dangerous man. But every chance he gets, he's targeting those ribs. And Steamboat's selling like a motherfucker.
Yeah, but the key to this match was the beginning. Ricky Steamboat, as the announcers noted, normally does not come out all wild and crazy in a house of fire. But he did here because his ribs were all fucked up. And he thought, if I come out right now, I've got a limited amount of time before I can't breathe anymore. I've got to finish this guy fast. And he tried, and he failed. And then, sure enough, his ribs were killing him. And he's hunched over, and he's grabbing his ribs, and Tully's very cautiously stalking him.
There's a point.
And Steamboat's cautiously backing up, and Tully's moving forward, and Ricky's backing up, and suddenly Tully just hits him right in the ribs and goes to work. It was awesome.
Steamboat's got his left hand clutched at his ribs. This is halfway through the match. He has his left hand at his ribs, and his right hand's just out there trying to ward Tully off. And he's very slowly moving backwards. Tully has his left hand up basically to counter Steamboat's right hand. And his right hand is basically just cocked and ready until he sees his opportunity. Have you ever seen, I know your cats have been in fights a lot, they'll stare at each other for like a minute and then one of them will just pounce?
Oh, yeah.
That's what this looked like.
Yep. And at the very beginning, when Ricky was running wild on this guy, everybody talks about, oh, Ricky Steamboat, he's the greatest babyface. You got to watch Ricky Steamboat, the babyface. Just watch Ricky Steamboat, the wrestler. This guy was so awesome.
Yeah.
And the thing that I noticed more than anything else was they waffled each other in the body and they didn't touch each other in the head.
Yes.
What a fucking revelation. He was walloping him with forearms to the back. He was chopping him as hard as he could in the chest. He waffled him in the back with the old flat fist gimmick.
Yeah.
And then he did a totally worked punch to the head.
and Tully sold it great.
Because you protect the head, but it's okay to whack the body.
Mm-hmm. I neglected to mention, by the way, the stakes for this match. Both men had put up $10,000 for a winner-take-all prize. So the winner was getting $10,000 of the loser's money. Also, Tully was defending the TV title here, but he could lose the title via DQ, and there was also, as they put it, a no-run rule.
A no-run rule.
Which apparently means if you run away, we will take your title away.
Got that straight out of jiu-jitsu competition.
Which begs the question, why isn't this the rule in all title matches?
No fleeing.
Yeah. So, Tully... We're in the middle of that match now, and it's neutral. It's like there was a point here where they just started over, and they're circling the ring, and Tully wants Ricky to make a mistake, so he spits in his face, but Ricky just wipes the sweat off his face. He's not taking the bait. He does not take the bait. The match continues. Steamboat gets a flurry of offense, and then when the opportunity presents itself, then he spits in Tully's face to get it back. He uses Tully's own slingshot suplex, which he did much better than Tully Blanchard for a near fall. Tully was bleeding a lot here. He grabbed a foreign object and did the miss a punch, get suplexed, but hit a punch in midair spot that Randy Savage would later steal. I think against Steamboat, actually. And Steamboat came back and he top rope splash for a near fall, but Tully pulled out the weapon a second time and clonked Steamboat with it for the win.
This was so great because Ricky whips him into the ropes. He ducks his head. Tully does a sunset flip. The referee gets down, and he's right there, looking at them. Tully grabs the gimmick. He waffles Ricky. He puts the gimmick back into his trunks, and he gets the pin. And there was the one half of my brain that was like, how the fuck did the ref not see this? But there was the other part of my brain that was blown away that Tully was so smooth that I believed the referee didn't see him.
It was awesome because Steamboat does the sunset flip. He is on his back, grabbing Tully's legs, playing backwards at them. Tully is standing and fighting and windmilling his arms. And the ref drops down. He's right there, but he's very, very low. He's on the mat checking Steamboat's shoulders. And Tully is waving and waving and waving. He looks at the ref and realizes the ref isn't looking, and very quickly gets the gimmick, hits Steamboat with it, puts the gimmick away, wins. So there you go. Tully Blanchard.
This was my favorite match of the week.
This was
legitimately
for sure the best match on Starrcade 84. The best thing on Starrcade 84 was Billy Graham's music.
Oh my God. Forget the fucking... Actually, don't forget the music. We got to talk a lot about the music. But it was the combination of the music and the fact that he was a karate guy.
So it's Superstar Billy Graham in 1984, like 6 years after he was WWF World Champion and beat Bruno. And he comes out and he's doing a karate gimmick. It's just this big, jacked up bodybuilder with giant arms, where Hulk Hogan got a lot of his stuff and Jesse Ventura got a lot of his stuff. And he comes out in his karate gi, and they are playing the most dirty, nasty, stanky, low-down funk you ever heard. It's awesome. And Billy Graham gets in the ring, and he does what I believe was supposed to be a kata. If you had someone who never actually did karate, but only had a kata described to him, that's what it might look like. And then when he was done doing the kata, he turned to the camera and he flexed his cartoonishly large arms. It was the best entrance of all time. So, the announcers were talking about this, and I'd missed their exact description, but apparently this was a heel versus heel match. Wahoo, like they booked it, and then Wahoo turned. So he's a heel here. And he was definitely the bigger heel, because Graham was out muscling him and throwing him around, and Wahoo was fighting dirty with chops and going to the eyes. So, they're doing this match. Went like 4 minutes, and then Wahoo hit a chop, and then Wahoo pinned him, and the match ended.
This match was unbelievably horrible and also unbelievably awesome.
I love the guy doing the karate fighter gimmick lost to a chop.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
There's something about a match with two guys. Wahoo was not bad, but he was working very, very slow because he was working with Superstar Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Billy Graham was horrible. But the two of them having a really, really slow, dramatic, terrible match together with superstar Billy Graham doing karate, I loved it.
They would do nothing. They would do nothing. They would do nothing. Wahoo would hit it one time. Billy would do the most cartoony, over-the-top, melodramatic sell. Repeat, repeat, repeat. I'm trying to think.
I got it.
Okay.
Here we go. This is the music of superstar Billy Graham at Starrcade 85. No, 84.
84.
Yeah.
On the network, of course.
Yeah.
He thought he had it.
I got to get it to the exact spot.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else I can say about this match to kill time. Billy Graham was world champion in the 70s. I have seen him then. He was horrible then. Now it's 6 years later. He was never that good. Now he's broken down and his body is disintegrating almost before our very eyes.
It's so awesome. Superstar Billy Graham is walking to the ring with a police escort. He's got a bandana on, of course, and a black belt. And he's doing a kata when he gets in the ring.
Or the hand jive, we're not sure.
The worst kata I've ever seen in my life. And I've done a lot of karate. I swear to God, if I ever come back, I realized earlier in the show I said I was never going to come back. I'm just be totally honest with everybody, okay? I was offered the opportunity to do a match, and I ran it over in my head over and over again. I stalled on answering. I finally decided, after last night's dream, I sent an email today. I said, I'm not doing it. Maybe one of these days, but I don't want to do this. It was after I'd had the dream about the Tokyo Dome. And everything that had ever happened, that had ever worried me or made me anxious in my entire wrestling career, it all happened in that dream last night. And I woke up and I was like, this really is the Lord saying, dude, don't do this match. You're happy, you got a family, everything's going great. Don't get in there and risk killing yourself. As God Almighty is my witness, when I watched this match with Billy Graham, when I heard the music, I saw the gimmick, I saw the karate, and I saw what they did in the ring. I was like, you really got to think about this.
You know that person back.
What are you?
I have an idea.
Come on now. This would be fun. That goddamn near changed my mind right there. Wonder if Wahoo's around.
He's not.
Billy Graham is.
He is.
God bless Billy Graham, but when I watched this match, the idea that he would be around in 2017...
It's pretty astounding.
It's amazing.
I think he'd be the first to tell you that, by the way.
And he's had health problems here and there, but he's still going strong.
Yeah, Wahoo's been dead for 15 years. So that's out. Anyway.
Guys, you got to watch Starrcade 84.
This was an awesome, terrible match.
You got to watch this match. It's unbelievably great. Everything about it's great. I'll never, as long as I live, forget the visual of that music and him getting in the ring and doing that kata. It's the funniest fucking thing. I stopped and made us watch it again.
Yeah.
And I just watched it again right
complain.
Here. Yep. 3 times now I've watched it tonight. I can't tell you the last thing I watched 3 times in one night. Maybe that dudette.
Good call. That's a different kind of great. Tony Schiavone interviewed Duke Kiamuka, Smokin' Joe Frazier, not the kangaroo, and Kyle Petty.
Dude, he may as well have interviewed the kangaroo. Are you kidding me?
Kiamuka cut the second worst promo I've ever heard, and then Joe Frazier outdid him. I have no idea what either one of them said.
I have absolutely no earthly idea what Smokin' Joe Frazier said. When he cut this promo, I thought, you're putting this guy in the ring tonight?
Yes. It turned out that was a mistake. And then Kyle Petty, the race car driver, was the only coherent one there. He said he was a judge and he was going to award who was ever most aggressive should it come down to a draw. As it turned out, it did not come close to a 60-minute draw. So it is Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight Championship and a $1 million prize. So we played superstar Billy Graham's music earlier, or at least the music they have used for him here on the network. I was frantically trying to figure out what song they may have played in real life that they had to edit out. Now I really even more want to know what song they played for Dusty Rhodes. Because I don't know what song they played in the building. On the network, they played some slow, sultry, baby-making music. And it's a slow vibe, and it is music to get you in the mood, and then a flabby guy comes out to wrestle, and that gets you out of the mood immediately. So they're doing this match. First of all, Dusty Rhodes. Yes, he was really big and fat. And yes, a lot of his matches involved him just laying there in like a chin lock and then making his comeback. But when he did stuff, the boxing combos he was throwing, the speed of his fists, the way he hit the ropes, the way he threw Flair around off the ropes, God, Dusty was good.
The guy didn't move a lot, but when he moved,
yes.
He moved very, very fast.
Yes. And Flair's out there throwing chops worthy of a pay-per-view title match, just chopping the piss out of this guy. Dusty's chopping him back left-handed. I never noticed that before. So Dusty gets a figure four, and even though Flair's able to escape, the announcer's like, his leg's screwed. That figure four is the turning point. There's no way to come back now. They're doing this match, and Joe Frazier is officially now the worst referee I've ever seen. In and out of storyline. Flair's in the apron, and Dusty goes to suplex him in, and Joe tries to break it up, and not by like going over there and counting 1, 2, 3. He tries to put his hands on both men, and they literally had to fight through him just to do the suplex. And then when it was time to count pins, he would very slowly get down, barely on both knees. He was almost still standing up, and slap the mat gently with his hands.
The very first count he did was so fast, it was like a shoot. Like, how fast can they get their shoulders up? Because it's going to be over if they don't.
Yeah. And then later, he was not doing that fast.
Yeah, they probably said, can you slow your counts down, dude? Calm down.
I don't know if they ever went over this with Joe beforehand. So, Dusty gets thrown out, hits the guardrail, comes up bleeding a lot. He was bleeding so badly, I thought he had gigged his lip. And then I realized the blood was coming down from above his eye so profusely, it was then going into and then out of his mouth.
That's the whole idea.
Yep.
Bleeding from the eye.
If you're gonna do it, do it big time. So Frazier briefly checks the cut, but Dusty waves him off. And then Flair and Dusty just had the most awesome brawl. Because Flair literally smelled blood, so he's frantic to get it open and finish this off once and for all. Dusty is equally frantic to stop Flair from finishing this off once for all. And then just as it's awesome, Joe Frazier steps in. He waves off the match. It is stopped due to blood loss. Ric Flair wins. That was the planned finish. Now, I thought in real life watching this, I thought this went like 8 minutes. I have looked it up. It officially here by the rule of Wikipedia went 12 minutes, 12 seconds. But still, if you are going to do the blood loss stoppage, you got to make it a lot more. You got to let the drama build. You have to.
Yeah, it was also weird too because, as you noted last week, when you see a Ric Flair Dusty Rhodes match, I mean, the first thing you think is, well, Dusty's a babyface and Flair's the heel. That was not the case here.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes was the heel. And so really, I guess in their minds, they thought, well, this is a babyface finish. Ric Flair, the babyface, won and got $1 million. And we beat Dusty Rhodes, but of course, it's Dusty. We didn't really beat him.
Right.
And then Dusty, it didn't even really hit me until afterwards when they interviewed Dusty in the locker room, and he threatens to find and kill Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Yes.
I was like, oh, he's a heel. I forgot about that.
I guess. The announcers outright said that the fans got screwed because the boxer called it like a boxing match, not a wrestling match. Like, for as long as it went, it was really, really awesome, and then it just stopped. I feel like I missed the second half of the match. So Flair is backstage. He's celebrating with his $1 million check. He said it was unfortunate how the match ended, but that was not his business, whether Frazier should have stopped the fight. All that mattered was he kept the title, he got the check, and he was done.
Man, what a babyface. What a reaction.
I think it would be more fair to say both guys were in a shade of gray area here. So then we got the best thing on the whole show. Gordon Solie and Bob Caudle, who had a bad night. The point where they're on camera and they talk over each other and both stop and both look at each other. Golden.
Hey, they were very polite, though.
They were very polite.
Yep.
But that was nothing to when they're wrapping up the show here in between the promos. And as they're talking, some guy
Oh, yeah.
just walks behind them. And it's perfect. It's so perfect you think it almost had to be planned. As he's passing by, he looks over his shoulder at the camera, then stops. And then he realizes it's on camera. Jim Carrey used to do a bit on In Living Color. It was just like this.
I don't know if he realized he was on camera. I think he walked by and noticed that they were in there, and he was just interested.
Maybe, but Jim Carrey used to do a bit on In Living Color, where he would be in the background of an interview making an ass out of himself, and everyone would laugh. This guy didn't go over the top like that, but he was looking in between them, peering, smiling, waving. Eventually, they cut to a shot of the ring instead, and Soli, who I guess could see this on a monitor, says, "Well, there you see the empty ring as things are winding down."
Yeah, things are winding down here at
building is
Starrcade.
empty.
There's no one in the building, and the matches are over.
Yes.
Yeah, it's winding down all right.
And so finally we got the promo from the very angry Dusty Rhodes, who, as you noted, threatened to hunt down and kill Smokin' Joe Frazier.
Yeah, the finish was bullshit. It was really weird because it was a total screw job finish for the fans. Even though the babyface got his hand raised, it was like a total screw job finish. Like, maybe if Dusty had been the babyface and he got screwed out of the $1 million and he vowed revenge and they tried to build something up like that, I mean, maybe that would work. But the dynamic here was just, it didn't work for me. And I don't know. I mean, I got what they were trying to do. Sometimes you have a good idea in wrestling that's actually a bad idea. The idea that you've got a boxing referee who calls a wrestling match like a boxing match and stops a match on blood. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a good idea.
No.
But it's a bad idea, if you know what I mean.
This was...
It's an idea that would make sense, but that doesn't mean you should do it.
You got to remember, Starrcade was their biggest show of the year. It was WrestleMania. This was the biggest match of 1984 in Jim Crockett Promotions. And they ended it on a bullshit blood stoppage, and they didn't even do it very well.
Yep.
So yeah, that was Starrcade 84.
I sure did like that Superstar match, though. I sure did like that Ricky Steamboat match.
Yes.
God, Ricky Steamboat and Billy Graham in a martial arts match. Oh, that'd be awesome.
What a shame.